Hello Classic Crew, and welcome to today's video where we're going to be talking about 5 ways to start being classic now. As you can see, I am not at home. I'm actually in a very cold climate. It's snowing right now. I'm sitting outside. Jacob and I are taking a little trip together, and it happens to just be gorgeous outside. It's very Christmassy. It's been snowing on and off. If you don't already know, I'm Jewish, but I think that Christmas is such a fun time of the year, and I love seeing other people happy, and the seasonal decor is really pretty, and this all makes me feel very cozy and warm, and also Hanukkah season is coming up, which I love too. So I'm just enjoying being here, getting to film outside in this snowy weather is super fun, and that's why I'm outside here. I don't know if you can see my breath on camera, but I can see it, which is always really fun. As a kid, I used to love that. I don't know if anyone else used to do that when they were kids. They would just like stand outside and into the air to see their breath turn to steam. So now that we've got that out of the way, I want to talk about 5 ways that you can start being classic today, right now, whatever you're doing. Being classic is about being the best version of yourself and embracing your womanhood and femininity. And so I like to talk about easy ways to start that process and things that will start making you feel better about yourself as you improve. So I'm really excited to share these 5 things with you today. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, make sure to do that now. You definitely want to keep following. And make sure to subscribe to my Substack newsletter where you'll get access to a ton of exclusive content. By the way, if you hear anything in the background of this video, it's because I'm outside, so you might hear people or something else. So now let's get into it. So the first thing that you can start doing to become more classic today, right now, is to start being more feminine. Now, I think that we don't understand the idea of femininity very well in our modern day and age. Femininity is not just about your outward appearance. It's not just about trying to feel beautiful and all of that kind of thing. It's also about an inward femininity, which is trying to embrace the feminine qualities that make women different from men. So one of the things that I try to work on, for example, is being more gentle, trying to approach problems with a gentle hand as opposed to being very harsh and asking things of people in a way that isn't really conducive to good results. I did a whole video on my channel all about 5 feminine mistakes I was making that weren't really feminine, that I thought were feminine at the time. And as I've realized what femininity really is about, which I will be honest, I think that the best way to understand femininity is to read about the woman of valor. Then I started to understand how I could improve myself as a woman. And so one way to start being more classic is to embrace your femininity. So from an outward appearance perspective, you'll want to take care of yourself. You'll want to shave. You'll want to put the right kind of creams and oils in your hair so that your hair looks healthy. You'll want to learn little tricks that you can use for your makeup to accentuate your best features. You'll want to choose clothing that accentuates your features without being immodest. That's the outward appearance of femininity, and I love doing that. I think it makes me feel so beautiful and put together, and it keeps me on track on days where I'm really not feeling great. But that inward femininity and trying to understand how you can be more womanly is definitely the first step to being more classic. So check out that video that I mentioned about 5 feminine mistakes. I think that'll clarify a little bit more about what I mean when I talk about femininity on the inside, and start incorporating more femininity into your life. Number 2 is make friends that share your values and your interests. Once you've found a good friend group, I think you can start to embrace being classic a lot more. When you're surrounded by people who are skeptical of being more classic, people who are skeptical of self-improvement, and people who are skeptical of your classic interests, it's really difficult to pursue them. It's really difficult to actually want to be more classic. But once you find people who share your values and share your interests, then you can do it as a group. You have a support system, you have a support team, and that's a really wonderful, beautiful thing. Having a group of friends that you love, trust, and know that you can go to them for advice, that is just invaluable and will really help you in your process of becoming a classic woman. Number 3 is read a book that teaches you something. I used to only read fiction because I love fiction. I love getting sucked into a different world and falling in love with characters. I absolutely love reading fiction. It's amazing. But I think something that's really helped me improve is reading books that taught me things, is reading books that informed me or taught me to think differently, or even just taught me to think better. I think that reading nonfiction is really great because it does give you tools to enter the world. Now, that's not to say that there is no value in fiction. I think there is a lot we can learn from fiction, but sometimes it's good to directly learn. And when we're not in school anymore and we don't really have access to education in that way, we have to make our own education. So taking the time to read books that inform us and that teach us something different, teach us how to think, that's a very classic thing to do because it makes you better and it makes you a more rounded person and someone that feels comfortable in many situations because you'll just know more. Number 4 is center yourself and your thoughts. Keeping calm and collected is something that I think is imperative to being a classic woman. Letting your emotions run away with you is not something that you should allow yourself to do, if you can help it. I think a lot of the time we think that our emotions are justified and therefore we can act in any way that we want. But that's just not the case. A lot of the time our emotions are not justified, and even if they are, our behaviors that come out of them are definitely not justified. And it's really important for us as classic women to try and understand our emotions so that we can behave in the best way possible. And keeping calm and collected is the best way to do that, and learning how to keep calm and collected. So it's not about repressing your emotions, it's about understanding them and then taking better steps to respond better to those emotions. I think something that I've really had to learn is that you don't always have to take your emotions to the nth degree. You can often stop them in their tracks or just learn how to deal with them in a much more productive way. And keeping calm and collected always means that you're going to end up with a much better result at the end of the day because you'll be able to think a little bit more clearly. So understanding your feelings, understanding your thoughts, and then taking steps to actually learn how to respond to them so that you can keep collected under pressure and then accomplish more at the end of the day is another way that you can start being classic now. The last thing that you can start doing to be classic right now is to start listening in a really good way. It's very easy to be the kind of listener who wants the conversation to move in a certain direction, and so you listen, but you're listening so that you can come up with a response, as opposed to just listening. And then the response will come naturally because you're listening to someone and you're hearing what they have to say. It is such a wonderful thing being around a really good listener. And if you're going to be a classic woman, you need to be a good listener because then you're actually engaging with the other person you're talking to, as opposed to sort of having almost parallel conversations where you're each trying to think of what to say next. That's never as good of a conversation as when you're each listening to one another. So learning how to listen, learning how not to stress about what your next response will be, will make you more classic over time. And that's something, again, I've definitely had to learn. I'm somebody who loves to have a good conversation, and often I thought a good conversation just meant that it went on for a long time and there were no awkward pauses. But that also meant that I wasn't listening as well as I should have. So learning how to listen, focusing on what the other person has to say without worrying about what you need to say is going to make you more classic overall. So those are the 5 ways that you can start being more classic today. Let me know in the comments what you think. Thank you so much for watching today's video, and make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. If you aren't already subscribed to my Substack newsletter, make sure to head over to classicallyabby.substack.com, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!